What new tank atonement? My radiance comes up very soon here. And then we die. Okay, that's the last pull of the night. I have a log to go over. So we're looking at a Hivemind. This is how I approach every log that I look at. I pull up the damage that I want to track.
I know it seems like super duper
Devouring
early into the
Frenzy
fight, but
and
like,
Volatile Eruption.
really hitting us off that much, but
Boop.
the later phases
And
like
boop.
a little bit earlier.
Little plus buttons on the side bring up the graphs over here. Then we are interested in your casts. The things we care about are going to be Evangelism, Rapture,
so I get this chunk down,
Radiance,
get the next set down. We're probably
Mindbender.
We might slightly at ease in the Psychic Storm because that seems to be the biggest issue. Like we've got the
You
damage,
did
but
2 Radiances on the first Devouring Frenzy, 2 on the second, 2 on the third, 2 on the fourth, and 2 on the fifth. That was good. You missed 1 Radiance charge between the third and the fourth Frenzy. This is all without looking at your timings. I'm gonna take a look at how you did the first Frenzy.
I don't think anyone actually.
Here. This Lucid Dreams cast is probably not worth doing here, especially if you're going to use your Claw. Chances are you overcapped your mana between these 2 casts, and you can check that. Mana underneath resources. You did. So you popped both, you hit full mana, and you stayed at full mana for at least 6 seconds. I would just do your Claw and hold your Lucid Dreams for later. Probably pop it on the next Frenzy. On the second Devouring Frenzy, you ramped much later than I would have. Let me pull up my log, and I'm gonna do the same thing I did for you. We're gonna pull up Devouring Frenzy, Volatile Eruption, and then I'm gonna go to my own casts. We want Evangelism, Rapture, Powered Radiance. So if we zoom in on this Devouring Frenzy, hate that bug, check out the difference in timing. I finished my ramp right as the damage was hitting. 0:15, 0:16. You did yours at 1:22. And the difference between how we hit ours causes a huge gap in healing because a Radiance charge with Enduring Luminescence lasts 10.5 seconds. Combine that with Evangelism, and you're gonna get 16.5. So your Radiance charge lingers all the way through. If you're doing it out here, your Radiance is not going to get full Evangelism value. When you were actually doing it, let's see what your cast looked like.
Do you think once they get
Let me go further back.
Do you think still having all those cooldowns committed to it is
and
necessary?
I'll check out my own timeline. So we've got my Shadowments. I refreshed my dot before I go into it. You did a dot refresh, you spread it with your penance, then you did a bunch of Shadowments. Once you were done, you refreshed your dot again. Radiance, Radiance, Evang, Mindbender, Schism. That was good. So you got the Volatile Eruption.
Coming in.
Your Radiance is pretty far out. You may not have seen this coming. My boss frames on the top right. I check out the Volatile Eruption cast. I'm very aware of when it's going to go boom. And when the Devo is supposed to go off, I finish up the ramp, I cast my Radiance, and I Schism into the explosion to try to prevent the dots, or the deaths. There we go. So Volatile Eruption Radiance a bit late, Devouring Frenzy ramp 2 a bit late. Is it the same story for Frenzy 3? No, Frenzy 3 was much earlier. Let's do a bit more of a zoom in here. You finished your thing at 32 seconds, and the damage was connecting about 30. You finished up, you got your Mindbender, you did a bunch of smites. Let me see when I did mine. The bit that's different between you and me, I was able to chain cast smites back to back to back, and you only got 2 off. So with all this mana invested and your double radiance invested, you cast 1, 2, 3, 4 damage spells. I cast 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Until I had to refresh my tank atonements because the atonements fell off. If you watch my VOD back, you'll see a spot where there's a massive empty space, like there's no real eggs around. The eggs hatch, they roll out, and then you use the penance to dodge the section where the egg used to be. Makes it much easier to dodge the next one coming in. We're gonna check out this last frenzy. This one you finished much earlier, and this would make it likely more healing done than the second frenzy. Let's check that out. I'm very curious. A bit more. But not terribly so, actually. That's surprising. Let's zoom in and see what the casts look like. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Double Radiance. You did your World Vein right before the Radiance charges, that was good. Wait, World Vein? Oh my god, this is me! I'm looking at myself! Sorry! Let me go back in. You still finished this much earlier. It is the same deal. You finished earlier than the second Devouring Frenzy. You went into the Evangelism. I gotta go further back. I'm very curious about what you cast before you went in. You refreshed your dot, you spread it with the penance, and you did 2 smites. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 Shadowmans. You did a Radiance, and then a Gap, and then a Radiance. Your first dot was applied at 204 seconds. This would go on to 24? Right here, 24 seconds, your dot fell off. Rather than having this gap where you're looking for the next person who's not atoned, Radiance, dot, Radiance, Evang. Then you could do another dot if the bosses are spread. If they're stacked, you don't have to. Penance will spread it. You ended up refreshing your dot inside of the Schism window, which isn't necessarily bad, but you could have avoided it and not dropped the GCD between these two. Mindbender does not get affected by Schism's damage amplification. You should Mindbender before the Schism cast. Then inside of all of this, you got off a bunch of damage spells. That's good. We can do the math again. 24 seconds plus 10.5 gets you to 34.5, plus 6 gets you to 40.5, and you did smites until essentially 40.5. If people were still injured, I would have done another 2 smites, maybe 3 smites, because the second Radiance hadn't fallen off yet. That's just free healing on the table. If those people are full HP, then going into these double Shadowmans to refresh the tank atonements is correct. Once you're done with all of this, look for the dot refresh. The dot that you apply back here or back here is going to start falling off around this section, and you can hit the pandemic window. If you watch my VODs back, every time I'm going tank atonement, I'm also going dot refresh, because everything is on the same cycle. I know my first tank atonement is falling off, my second tank atonement is falling off, my first dot is falling off, my second dot is falling off, and I just do it in the cycle. I do it out of muscle memory, but also my nameplates. There's a huge gap in your GCDs. If you're moving in this section, look to move between your casts. Do your penance to spread your dot for free. Do your Purge the Wicked cast on something that doesn't have a dot. Replace a tank atonement with Power Word Shield rather than Shadowmand and use that to move around. Stuff like that will help prevent big gaps between your GCDs, especially when you have atonements out. Mana-wise, you could probably cut back on a lot of the single atonements you were casting that weren't on the tanks or people who ate roly-polies or people who ate the debuff off Void Echoes. in order to have more mana in the tank for moments where you're ramping. And that would let you run a real healing essence rather than lucid dreams on Hivemind. I would say the biggest takeaways here are do your ramp sooner on Devouring Frenzy 2, on Frenzy 4, and Frenzy 5. It looked like your Raptures were actually much closer to the damage event than your Evangelisms were. Your Mindbender casts looked to be okay. You did them on every single Devouring Frenzy. Your Radiance holding versus using was good, other than this one bit between Frenzy 3 and Frenzy 4. You want to work on your dot refreshes every time your attunements start falling off. Hold your penance so that you can dodge out of things rather than fitting in extra dot refreshes, and try your best to smite as much as you can when your attunements are actually out. Hopefully that is the log review you were looking for. I'm sure there were things that I missed.